Good morning, everyone, and welcome to One World Through Cooperative Finance, the free webinar event celebrating International Credit Union Month. While some of you may know me from television, after all, I'm wearing the same fit, and some of you may know my voice from urban radio, this morning I am simply here to navigate the conversation as a number of credit unions have come together to make sure that we understand the value of credit unions and make certain that as we observe Credit Union Month, that we are best equipped to make the best financial decisions for ourselves. So, 𝐿 is my name, and as your host, it is a pleasure to speak with some persons representing a number of institutions, including Diane Joseph, the member for the Cooperative Credit Union League of Trinidad and Tobago, and the president of the TTCSI. We are also joined by the Group Executive Manager for Marketing, Research and Business Development at Eastern Credit Union, Mr. 𝐂𝐨𝐨𝐩𝐞. Christopher Thompson, the CEO of Guyana Public Service Credit Union, and Luis Carmino, the president of 𝐎𝐧𝐞 Credit Union, are both joining us, as well as Mr. 𝐿𝐴 𝐶𝐈, the Credit Administrative Manager for Rand Credit Union, along with Kyle Andrews, the Director of the T&T Fire Service Credit Union, and Mr. Holland Bronte-Tincknell, the CEO of 𝐿𝐴 Credit Union, all of whom are going to give us some insight that we can use as this morning's session explores a number of topics that will benefit both our members, existing and potential, and the communities in which they operate. So we will begin to give a little context on the significance of Credit Union Month, and of course the online theme, One World Through Cooperative Finance. And to do that, we will have Ms. Diane Joseph, the Cooperative Credit Union League of Trinidad and Tobago representative and president of TTCSI, give us some insight and flesh out, if you will, that One World Through Cooperative Finance theme. Ms. Joseph, the floor is yours.
Credit unions and the day of celebrations in particular quietly disappeared. There was a second chance in 1948. The United States Credit Union National Association, CUNA as we know it, decided to initiate a new National Credit Union Day celebration. CUNA and CUNA Mutual Insurance Societies set aside the third Thursday of October as the National Day of Observance. By then, many more of America's credit union leaders believed there was a need for an occasion that would bring people together to reflect upon credit union history and achievements and to promote the credit union idea across the country. Credit unions, state credit union leagues, and others in the United States and chapters in the United States were encouraged to celebrate the new holiday in some way. It was to be a time for raising funds for movement causes and to pay homage to the men and women who had dedicated their lives to credit union development. New movements joined the credit union family each year, and an increasing number of people were interested in celebrating their uniqueness and unity with a special holiday that could be enjoyed by everyone, regardless of religion, political beliefs, cultural differences, or language. Many credit unions and leagues began to distribute publications, slogans, and kits, and Credit Union Day became an international celebration. The celebration later spread throughout the globe, and the World Council of Credit Union created the first International Credit Union Day materials several years ago. Today, they continue to provide International Credit Union Day resources to credit unions and associations throughout the world. Trinidad and Tobago is one of the countries that celebrate this important period in the largest of ways. The high point being the grand opening celebration on the second Sunday in October, and our national award ceremony on the third Thursday in October. This event is designed to recognize our credit unions for excellence in financial and HR performances, the most outstanding credit union youth, and later, the closing ceremony in Tobago, where we recognize our pioneers on the Sister Isles. Credit unions have and continue to do human service on behalf of our members of all walks of life, and we must share our success stories. Let me say, if we do not share our success stories from our credit unions, no one will share it for us. As we join in this unique and exciting celebrations called Credit Union Month, we must remember that when we do so, we join more than 403 million members in 98 countries, who also recognize and celebrate the unique difference of credit unions on International Credit Union Day. World Council of Credit Unions and the International Credit Union Day celebration is a trademark registered with World Council only. It is imperative, therefore, that we sustain a high level of best practices, strong governance standards, and continue to develop our current leaders and those we foresee as our successors. There must be a plan to embrace positive change and involve the youth members who are desirous of following in our footsteps. There is no doubt about it. Though there is an aging population in many jurisdictions, and this means that a movement must take note of this development and seek to put strategies in place to allow for succession within our organizations. It is considered prudent when leaders prepare those they lead to do better than they have done in their time of leadership. It is also considered prudent to sit back and watch those we develop grow into leaders of tomorrow. Let us therefore, during the month of October and beyond, reflect on the impact of credit unions on our communities, our people, the young and the old. Let us reflect on our financial products and services that we so competitively provide for our members, and importantly, the many that we have educated, empowered, and impacted to the point that their success stories are worthy of praise of what we have done as credit union leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, members all, as I prepare to close, let me thank the host of this event, Rose IT Services Limited, for arranging an important webinar such as this one, and for putting together a strong panel of speakers that are experienced and competent in the field of credit unionism. It does demonstrate our understanding and belief in what we do, and commendation is due to Rose IT Services. As you continue your work and share your product with our members, we trust that you will continue to do this with the highest level of excellence, and that you will continue to collaborate with our league, the TTCSI, and all stakeholders. We remain committed to everything that is in the best interest of our large and growing membership, and by extension, all citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. May the balance of today's proceedings be most edifying for the participants, and that you continue to remain faithful and supportive of the work that we continue to do on behalf of our people. Once again, it has been my utmost pleasure to share this time with you. Happy International Credit Union Week and happy International Credit Union Month. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Ms. Joseph, giving us a little bit of history and really grounding why this is necessary and making it even more palatable to our long list of, a growing list rather, of attendees. I will remind the attendees that you can at any point use the Zoom chat option to ask your questions directly, because as Mr. Joseph rightfully said, we do have quite the incredible list of panelists, one of whom is getting a little trouble connecting, but as soon as he's able to do so, he will join the conversation and you'll be able to interact with him as well. But I think it's important for us, now that we have a context as to the origins and some of the astounding numbers in terms of persons that credit unions serve across the globe, it will be interesting to put into perspective the global perspective of credit unions, especially since locally we will find that there are persons, believe it or not, that still do not understand or make a significant distinction between your standard or traditional financial institutions and credit unions. So our next speaker will be Mr. 𝐤𝐶 𝐖𝐨𝐫𝐥𝐝, the Group Executive Manager, who is for Marketing, Research and Business Development at Eastern Credit Union. And the wealth of knowledge, experience, and insight that he has from a Caribbean, regional, and international perspective can lend itself to perhaps answering that question, why we might think that people are still a little bit unsure as to what value the credit unions that operate in their communities bring to them. So we are excited to hear from him as he discusses the global impact of credit unions' cooperative principles specifically, and how credit unions unite communities around the world through finance. So Mr. 𝐲𝐸𝐺𝐝 will be giving us quite a bit of detail there, but I will also encourage our panelists to chime in, because we have regional insight here in the form of Mr. Christopher Thompson, who can also perhaps give us some similarities. Before we get into 𝐤𝐶 speaking, Christopher, could you confirm or deny that you faced similar challenges in the Guyana market, where persons know credit unions exist, but can't exactly place their fingers on the value that they bring? Is that a similarity you see?
Definitely, it is. Good morning, and thanks for having us. Indeed, definitely, that's across the board in Guyana. There's still a large sense of unknownness to credit unions and their operations relative to the conventional financial institution, the commercial banks, and other lending agencies. I rather suspect the principal culprit in all of this is that credit unions are members owned and not really heavily focused on profit, as the keynote speaker would have said. We're not profit oriented, but we indeed do generate profit, but it usually goes back into membership more often than not. And that approach usually confuses the general public as to what is our end game here. When they see us not going after these profit margins that are being usually employed by other institutions. So to give an example, our vehicle loans are equity free. It's 100% financing, and that is revolutionary within the Guyanese market, that a financial institution will offer vehicle loans devoid of equity or any down payment. Is 100% financing, and that has really confused the market and to some extent even the membership. So we still have a bit of ways to go in terms of educating and sensitizing our membership and the wider public as to how we operate.
Hopefully, these sorts of endeavors will create a bridge, if you will, to that knowledge gap, giving the information that persons need. And again, I encourage our attendees to chime in on the conversation virtually, or even walk into your credit unions, because I want to segue to Mr. Seeley's expertise, having been in a more conventional or the traditional financial institutions and now being at Rand Credit Union. Perhaps you can propose or suggest some alleviances to that gap that we have, that misconception or misinformation where credit unions are concerned, Mr. Seeley. What have you found works well for gaining that trust and getting people to come on board with credit unions so that they really understand that intrinsic value?
Morning, everyone. Thank you, panelists, Madam President. It really is refreshing after spending most of my career at another financial institution where we didn't have credit unions on the radar at all. In fact, we didn't, they didn't even consider credit unions a threat And having joined the credit union and being part of the credit union movement now, and being part of this great establishment called RAND that celebrated 77 years in existence this year, I can tell you that they are underestimating us. I can see the difference in that it is truly member-centric. It's the entire drive is about finding a solution for your member who are part owners as opposed to a number and a customer. And that is the conversation that I've had with many of our millennials, you know, in letting them know that at a credit union, you're not just a number, and we can put a face. More often than not, the employees will be able to tell you personal stories of members that they've had interactions with. It really is a family type atmosphere. And it's really people helping people, as opposed to trying to see what benefits you can get out of the people.
Yeah. Absolutely going to
you know,
resonate with people, no matter generation. So yeah.
No matter the generation. So that you get a lot of custom tailored financial solutions to problems, issues that members might have, you know, and you wouldn't really find it being like a run-of-the-mill cookie cutter type solution as you find in other institutions,
right,
where they hold you to a policy and it's very rigid. And, you know, trying to step out of that, you're penalized heavily. It took some getting used to. So I had to take off that hat and actually put on a credit union hat to be able to work through some of the challenges that some of our members faced. And when I share the experiences with them, and you know, from my perspective, I can then give them both worlds.
Right.
You know,
which we will get into in more depth in a little bit, because I know you have a more comfortable hat on now. Yeah. But I am glad that you mentioned speaking specifically to millennials, because it allows me to segue back to Kester as you give us a little bit of that global perspective, and particularly focusing, Kester, on the cooperative principles and how credit unions unite communities through finance. I'm sure that you would have found different generations willing to embrace the concept more than others. So if we will have Kester now give us a little bit of insight and explore that global perspective of how we unite people, I'll give him the floor now. Kester?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you, and sorry for being late. Had some technical difficulties. But to get a true understanding of that global perspective, we have to understand the history of the movement, right? And we all know the parts about how it started in Europe in 1845 with people like the Yugoslavian Samuel Djukovic, you know, and Hermann Schulz-Dietrich. These guys started this thing in Europe, and it was based on self-help and self-responsibility and democracy with ethical values enshrined in these things. And funny enough, there was an adversarial type thing going on with the movement in the beginning, in Europe with Herman and Raiffeisen, who you all will also know in Europe. He started it in the rural area, whilst 𝐤𝐸𝐳 started it in the urban area, and they had a little conflict going on. But we know this history, and however, by 1913, thereabouts, you had over 2 million Germans already forming part of the credit union system. What we don't hear about is the parts that started off in places like Japan, where Ninomiya Sontoku, I think that's his name, he would have started it in Japan. You have people like Leon de Andremont in Belgium, Luigi Luzzati in Italy. You have in Canada, which we all know, Alphonse Deschamps in 1901, who started the great movement there, and Edward Feline in USA. You have Father Sullivan, who came to Trinidad and Tobago and the rest of the Caribbean with Malcolm Milne and these guys. But there's another aspect again that we don't really hear about, which is where it started in Africa, West Africa, and it was formed like a type of susu. That's how it used to go about back in the day. And they called it, the West Africans call it, if I'm not mistaken, isuzu, right? And it also translated back into the Caribbean through the slaves. So they would have had their own form of credit unionism and cooperatives, whereby they would have pooled resources and tapped into that to grow and get things that they wanted done in terms of finances and so forth. And with the advent of the indentured laborers coming from China and India, you also had something called what they would have called, the Indians would have called it chitty, and the Chinese hui, and they would have done a similar type things coming into the Caribbean as indentured laborers. Now, moving on, what we see is that this thing, fast forward a few years, a good bit of years, you found that a formalized approach was taken. And if you look at what we refer to as the credit union onion, you would see, just like Mr. Silly was speaking about, the members being the platform of everything. So different regions have different, so America will have a different structure of the onion, but one thing holds firm: the member is the base of the onion. Likewise in Africa, where they call their credit union SACCOs, the member is still the base of the credit union. Canada, the same thing, with the 𝐎𝐴𝐽, the world body on top of it, governing everything. Right? So when you look at this, the structure was formed like that to formalize how we do everything. And within that structure, you have certain principles that guided the credit union. And we have 7 of them. There was an 8th one recently added. But the 7 principles, they are voluntary membership, democratic member control, members' economic participation, autonomy and independence, education, training and information, cooperation amongst cooperatives, which is very important, something that we don't always conform to, and concern for community. Those are the 7 key principles that we are supposed to operate under. Now, there's an 8th one, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion, which means credit unions not supposed to discriminate on sex, gender, various things, ethnicity, right? And to add to that, that principle for global standardization and how we operate, 𝐴𝐽 also introduced the international operating principles, where you had the cooperative structure, and that was broken down into the member-owned, member control, and democratic control. You also had the service to members, which is the financial inclusion, financial sustainability of our members, and the environment in which the credit unions function, and most importantly, maximizing the member economic benefit. And the 3rd operating principle was social responsibility, which really speaks about the financial literacy of our members, networking, cooperation, and the community responsibility that credit unions are supposed to hold, and the global vision that we all try to work together, which is fostered by 𝐴𝐽, right? And just to give a summary of the type of how we are globally strengthened in terms of what we do. At present, we have approximately 82,758 credit unions in 98 countries, with $3.6 trillion in assets as a whole, and approximately 404 million members spread across the globe. But the downside to all of this, we only have a penetration rate of 13.9. Now, the penetration rate varies in different areas of the world, but in the Caribbean, just to come back home, the Caribbean, we have our penetration rates being a little higher with countries like St. Lucia, St. Kitts, Nevis, Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. They have 100% penetration rate, meaning that practically all their citizens are members of a credit union. Trinidad and Tobago is around 70.1 penetration rate, so we still have some work to do. Jamaica is a bit low as well, around 30-something% penetration rate. But it's a global movement that we are part of, and together we are stronger than trying to do things by ourselves. So I will
completely appreciate that unity message. And as much as we are talking about penetration levels, we are relatively low in comparison to what one might want. What I'm hearing is opportunity. What I'm hearing is the ability of facilities like credit unions, these forums, and that sense of financial literacy being filled, being opportunities for us to make that gap smaller. And I know that Christopher will echo that sentiment and expand on that, because as we were touching on before, in terms of the region, there are similar misconceptions, and we are aimed and poised to challenge those misconceptions. When we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, it taps into every and anyone, really keeping that core that Mr. CD underscored at the, well, yes, that core value at the forefront, making sure that people understand that we are for the people. And so I'm going to segue straight into Christopher's segment, if you will, because he represents the Guyana Public Service Credit Union. And 𝐿𝐳𝐶 𝐞 will also join this conversation as the president of �𝐸𝐶, if you can, as they would give us some idea of the impacts of credit union, particularly where strengthening our communities are concerned. And Christopher, I know I chatted with you a little bit, but let's go ladies first, just because Ms. 𝐸𝐶, I'm sure, can give us some, well, implications and impact stories as to how credit unions have led the charge of making sure they make positive impacts to the communities within which they exist. Yes, Ms. 𝐸𝐶?
Yes, good morning, Madam Facilitator, and good morning to the panel and those who are in attendance mode. As rightly the facilitator did introduce, with respect to the credit unions and the speakers that have gone before, the penetration rate continues to engage our attention, because whilst we have been, I would say, in competitive mode with other financial agencies, and while the scope is there for even greater additives with respect to the benefits to the members, not just being shareholders, having a vote in whatever dispensation it is that we are really taking the platform of credit unions into. They also have much more than that. They have a whole say in the whole makeup and mock-up of our storyline and of our success story. And with respect to the whole process of penetration, what also comes with it is a certain type of quality assurance. And we are big on quality assurance because it tells us that the whole quality assurance aspect of it emanates from within the organization. And as such, it radiates and cascades into the general public. And while it is that we have been trying to do an offset with that, continuous improvement comes into the arena. And what does continuous improvement tell us? Continuous improvement tells us that, as the previous speaker had said, I think the CEO had so rightly said, that we are in the fraternity of an aging population. And we are. That's the reality of it. And so we have to engage the millennials, Generation Zs, Generation As, the alphas. And so they are the ones with the digitization processes in their mind. They have been born into the digital age. And we as the aging population have to catch up. And how do we catch up? We catch up by forming a partnership or a kind of merger, a kind of synergy between what we know in regards to experience, regards to financials, governance, and leadership. And if we have a marriage with that and the millenniums who have come into a space with the ideology and the platform of digitization, the high tech, then it platforms us into what we are looking at now of a cashless society. So in times past, we, the baby boomers and those who would have been in that kind of traditionalist kind of mode, we would have come to the credit union in those days with a passbook. You don't see passbooks anymore. We have evolved from that long, long time ago. Everything now is by the touch of a button. You have statements. Statements now are becoming like Betamax, that long time cassette that you would put into your device. You now go on into the e-commerce, into the online banking, and you practically manage your finances yourself. You don't wait for the CSR, you don't wait for the loans officer or whoever it is that is attending to you. So the flexibility of that kind of autonomy where you are able to articulate your finances yourself and as such be able to switch from one account into another account determines your own idealism of what is the continuous improvement. So you have it inside and it has now cascaded to outside and platformed and morphed. And it will continue to platform and morph. And we have to be able to be on the right side of that morph into the whole digitization process, because quite frankly, we'll be left behind. We are in a whole world of technical age and competing for our market share with respect to the financial pie. And how does one do that? We have to look at it from a pluralistic point of view. And as such, be able to keep in mind that same continuous process that will also tell you, you have to manage your talent. Because we have a wealth and of opportunity out there and a plethora of information, of talent, of skills that I believe still is to a greater extent untapped. Because we have to actually rip the seams out of our jackets that have become really too small now. Huh? So we have to have a different kind of customization, and that will take into account all of these things that we are talking about. So when you have the synergy of our internal customers with respect to our TQM and it morphs into the external, then we are able to say that, yes, we have become that kind of platform that is going to take us even higher and to a greater platform. And I particularly like what the previous speaker had said about the penetration rate. And that continues to get into our heads, and we continue to ask, why not 100%? Why only 70%? What is the fallout of the 30%? Why aren't we reaching the 30%? What is the demographic of the 30%? And what is the segmentation of that 30% that we have not yet reached? What are the components of them? What do they need? What do they aspire to that we have not yet reached? So we have reached 70, and why not 30? So that continues to engage our attention so that while we continue to evolve as a movement and continue to tap into what may be our gaps, do a gap analysis, see how best we can bring it closer, the final destination is that even though there are many routes to be taken to get into that final destination, we ought to be the preferred route to get to that destination. Thank you.
Community is how we're going to do that. And I really like that that collective is at the belly of everything that you're seeing. But we are crossing waters again, back to Christopher, because as much as we have that support internally, there is still that 30%, as you rightly said. So Christopher, I want you specifically to give me some of the initiatives or demonstrate how partnerships have helped to tap into that 30%, so to speak.
Yeah, indeed. I think Guyana has a unique challenge relative to geography, given the sheer width and size of the country. So relative to penetration rate, especially public service credit union that has to service the entire country, because we would have members across the length and breadth of the entire country. So Rosa, I think could tell you that the mere accessibility to the members is a challenge, and therefore we have to leverage technology to really reach every possible member that we could reach, because it will be a mammoth task, both financially and physically, for us to do that without technology. And just to bring it back a little bit to what Mrs. Seeley was saying earlier, is that, credit unions, being relatively unknown, or not even being bothered by bothered or being included in other financial institutions as a threat, doesn't really evolved tremendously in Guyana. I mean, we have implemented some basic initiatives that are pretty commonplace in the wider Caribbean credit union movement, but are new to Guyana, and we have seen tremendous movement in the marketplace. Simple initiatives like low-cost vehicle loans that target low-income earners. We have introduced that to ensure that the low-income earners have access to motor vehicle, and similarly, low-income mortgages that are specifically geared towards low-income earners, those persons who are earning at the bottom of the ladder, and historically not even considered by your traditional financial institutions. So we used to think of ourselves as complementing other financial institutions rather than competing with them, because we would service the membership. Our membership usually weren't able to qualify at other commercial institutions. So therefore, we were the only resort. And quite frankly, the banks were happy, other folks were happy, because we are really picking up the slack left by the others. In recent vintage, though, however, what we have noticed is that we would have arranged our interest rates, our terms and conditions to suit our lower income members. And that has caused a reverberation in the market. And therefore, we've seen interest rates tumble across the country here in Guyana, simply by what the credit union has initiated. So that has really benefited the entire country as a whole, I might add. So it's really an indirect effect that it certainly was not the intended effect by design.
But good problems to have. Good problems to have.
Good problems to have indeed. Indeed. But yes, entering that, I guess our penetration rate in Guyana is probably far less. There is the almost compulsory enlistment relative to the credit unions within the disciplinary forces in Guyana. For example, if you enlist in the Guyana Police Force or the Guyana Defense Force, you are required to be part of the credit union. So that might have an impact on penetration within those sector in the Guyanese credit union movement. Of course, the public service credit union, it's completely voluntary, and the other smaller credit unions might not have that same level of success. So I would gauge, I have no official figures, that our penetration rate is possibly about 50%. For example, we have approximately 65,000 active public servants. Our membership numbers over here hovers around 25 to 30,000 at our credit union. So, like you said, there's opportunities, and we are advancing and want to dive headfirst into those opportunities. We are really and truly looking at leveraging technology to ensure that we're able to capture that remaining 50%, like you guys are trying to capture your remaining 30%. And we're really looking at initiatives that will really raise the eyebrows of potential members out there, that they will want to come on board immediately with us.
Ms. Camino, I know that there are initiatives that you have already begun to employ that, as Christopher said, raises eyebrows already. So give us a little bit of insight, bringing it back home, I guess, as to what strategies or partnerships, what initiatives you guys have embodied and enlisted, perhaps particularly capturing that next generation, as you mentioned.
Okay, well, at 𝐬𝐶 Credit Union, we are one of the large credit unions. We have roughly over 22,000, a little over 22,000 members. We manage an asset base of close to maybe between $221, $222 million. And so if it is that we are to have a management, a consistent management of funds and its people, the IIP suggests, which is the investment in people suggest, that you must have some sort of succession planning if you are to continue to capture the talent management. And so in 2011, we instituted a program called the Junior Executive Program. And this has been geared towards age groups 18 years to 30 years. And what we seek to do is to mold and shape tomorrow's leaders into good governors of integrity, ethical business methodologies, and having them shadow the board so that at some point in time they would ascend in that kind of mobility. Currently, we have 4 members of the junior executive on our board currently. Our board consists of 9 persons, and we have 4 who are junior executives. 2 of them are currently on the executive of the board of directors. And the other 2 are directors, of course. Which one of them has cupped the title of the Most Progressive Youth Award, I believe it was in 2021. And so we have had a steady progression where we have been monitoring these, how I should say, young plants. And so we have them in some strategic positions as shadowers of the board. There is a president of the junior executive. There is a vice president, there is a secretary, and so on. And what this helps to do is to shape them and to morph them also into the world of cooperativism. We have an internship program, a summer internship program, where we recruit them into the organizational base so that whilst they have the methodology of how one goes about the succession planning in their sphere of junior executives, they also get an opportunity to practice it and to implement it when we take them on as summer interns. Some of them have remained with us even up to now. Some of them have started as summer interns, and some of them now are on our staff. So this is one area that we hope that it will continue to catch on, not just to explode further into 𝐎𝐶 Credit Union, but that other cooperatives, our sisters and brothers in the fraternity, would also do likewise, and so train up their young millennials into the sphere of takeover, into the sphere of succession plans. And the whole social corporate issue, because what they do, we give them the autonomy to go out there, look at what persons in your age group would like. What would be the attraction or the magnetization to pull persons of your age group into the credit union? And so they do a lot of work. They do a lot of work, coastal work and charitable work with NGOs and so on. And so I'm
glad to hear that there is that future planning and that inclusion of the future generations, because one of the big conversations, and actually our first comment in the chat, has to do with technological advancements. Rosalina LaRosa, according to her name here, says more credit unions need to be technologically up to date with apps where members can check their information online. And that leads us straight into our next part of the conversation, where Mr. Seeley will take center stage as the Credit Administration Manager at RAND Credit Union. He'll give us a little bit of insight into the financial products offered by credit unions. Of course, the savings plans and the loans, but keeping at the core how those products benefit members, and in terms of traditional financing and the future of financing, give us some insight there. So Mr. Seeley, I'm handing over to you again, giving us some good info we can look forward to using.
Thank you. You know, before I move on, I just wanted to touch on what Mr. Thompson said about, you know, the banks being complementary to the banks in Guyana. And I found it very interesting in that similarly in Trinidad and Tobago, what we find happening is that the banks have started adjusting some of their policies to cater for some of our market. A couple of years ago, the banks basically started a segmentation process of segmenting their customers into tiers. And unsecured lending was a thing that was taboo at certain tiers. So you found a lot of customers found it difficult to get financing or unsecured financing. And earlier this year, we've seen a couple of the commercial banks venture into realms that I was shocked, as a spending a career and many years against, that type of lending and seeing some of the offers that they were making to some of our members, had us really, really, I was really baffled. But that is just what competition will do. That's just when you have a good product, what it will do. When they've realized that there's an untapped market, basically, or a market that they basically ignored, that the credit unions picked up the slack in, they're now looking back and saying, hey, wait, there's something for us to look at there. And moving on into the products that we have that can really benefit our members, it starts with our savings plans, that gives you an opportunity to create wealth. You also look at our share contributions where you can basically purchase shares in the credit union, become a voting member, to shape right where the institution is going. There are a couple insurance products that you can use to insure yourself and your family, to provide some sort of security as you go forward, especially for newer employees. And then we have the traditional loan products that we offer: vehicle financing, mortgages, consolidation loans. That is really, really a big thing among the credit unions, where members are able to put all of their outstanding balances together, free up some cash at the month end, in terms of what payments you have to pay, as well as plan for future expenses for the family. You can really sit with your credit union officer and chart out a way forward. As we like to say in RAND, create a vision of where you see yourself and the family down the road, and we will help you get there. Help you live your best life possible. I mean, we really mean that. And it's not just at RAND. The other credit unions as well have a similar take on how they treat with their members. And it really is refreshing to hear the panelists so far speak about millennials, because that really is where the future is. I am aware it's not just at RAND, but a lot of the other credit unions have started their automation process, moving towards automating most of their services, automating their loans, so that really and truly to attract millennials, we have to go where the millennials are. We have to go. And that is one of the things that I found only a couple of credit unions were doing well. And it's something that I questioned early on in my tenure at the credit union. Why aren't we where the millennials are? They're no longer on Facebook. We know that. So let's go where they are. We, develop programs that will attract the millennials. And as Ms. Camino said, it's a thumb generation. They don't have time to line up. They don't have time to come in and all of these. They want to sit on their couch. They want to sit in the car. They're just out of the gym. They're having a latte. They just want to get on their phones and, and get stuff done. And it is like, how quickly can I get this done? Now, immediately. This is the immediate generation, So yes, we like the other credit unions, welcome the change that is about to happen, that is happening.
Right.
And we are preparing for it. It's not just one credit union. All of us are preparing for it so that we can better serve the younger generation and help assist the membership with the aging population that we have in the credit union. The demographics is really on the higher side, you know, but for all intents and purposes, the aim really is there to speak to millennials, right?
One of our latest comments, and I'm just reading as they come in, saying basically that fully supporting the idea of succession planning, I'm sure is across the board for not just credit unions, but any institution. What I am very keen on hearing is how we're going to do that, what that actually looks like in terms of those modifying tools. And as you mentioned, Mr. 𝐭𝐨𝐶, that digitization on the apps that usually take on priority for millennial generations. Now, before we get into those specifics, we do have some testimonials from members of some of the credit unions represented by our panelists here. So I'll take the opportunity to let our attendees know that we continue to encourage you to ask your questions right here on Zoom. As you would see, please feel free to post any questions in the Q&A. We will try to take them as they come. And hopefully we'll get some questions off of the perspectives that we're about to hear. Finding it fitting to begin with one from RAND Credit Union, a member that is, as we would have just heard from Mr. 𝐭𝐶, so that we will hear from the people of RAND to give us some insight moving forward.
My name is Shalianne Marvell. I've been a member at RAND Credit Union for the past 23 years. After all these years being with RAND and being around RAND staff, they have been more than family to me. It's my pleasure seeing them and meeting them from the security straight up to the managers. RAND is the only credit union that I am a member of because I have never had issues. It has always been a smooth flow for me, from them teaching me about financial products, how to invest my money, how to save, how to do anything financially. This is the reason why I have been a member for so long. I've had several memorable experiences with RAND. One of my memorable experiences was when they asked me to become a tutor in, I think it was about 2015 or somewhere around there. And at that time, I wasn't so much into teaching about pastry and baking arts, but I knew how to do it well. So when I was asked, I did some research and I said, you know what, I'll give a try at it. The first experience was really, really wonderful, and I have been a tutor with them for all those years. There was a time that my house was flooded in 2018, and it was really a hard lash for us as a family because we lost every single thing. When you look at what you've spent your whole life working for and how you've been able to build up something for your family and then lose everything in one day, it was really heart-rending when my children asked me, Mommy, what are we going to do next? And I told them, you know what, we're just going to rebuild. Around that time, I got a call from RAND and they said, we will help you in the rebuilding process. And they really did. And I'm extremely grateful for that at the time when I needed someone and I needed strength, my credit union was there to help my backup. RAND has become a credit union that has moved from being very manual to being an online institution. I remember the times when we had to stand in line and we had to wait for an appointment to see someone. And now it's so easy that you can do most of your transactions online. You can get questions answered. You can chat with anybody from RAND online. So moving from being a manual institution to being online and increasing the technology and the ease at which you do things at RAND, that is something that I've been really happy to see develop over the years. I would like to see RAND turn into the preferred choice for everyone when it comes to approaching a credit union. Being a robust and vibrant accounting and savings academy for anyone who chooses to be with a credit union.
No pressure, Mr. 𝐭𝐶, but an academy is in the making. And I think that it certainly answers actually one of our questions that would have probably stemmed from your contribution as well. Vinod Ramata asks, how do we attract millennials who have limited spending power while maintaining a mature membership that has spending power? And granted that we would have just wrapped with you, Mr. Seeley, I want you to take a stab at this one, and I will kind of toss it over to Kyle, as he will give us some insight next. How do you think, in terms of RAND or beyond, getting those millennials and maintaining your mature membership is working for you?
Well, first off, I will say that our marketing team is really doing an excellent job. They continue to evolve, and they're mainly made up of young persons, you know, and they really embody let's go where the millennials are. So you would see more postings online, you would see the reels, you would see the stories, you would see the clickbaits, as we call it, for RAND. So we have started to get the word out to our millennials. What we are doing in the background is ensuring that we have the Tom food, as I like to call it, for those millennials, you know, the apps, things that they can access quickly. We have some, we are working on others, and then there are some new seeds germinating that will further put us in that sphere to be seen by more millennials, and you know, get them to want to investiquire, as we call it, as to what RAND is all about. One of the things I share with a lot of the young folk that I come into contact with is that you hear them talking and asking questions about mortgages. You know, I want to buy my home, I want to own my own house, and I tell them, ask yourself the question: how much do you want to pay? And that's the first thing you need to ask, because if it is that you look at other institutions, you have to be able to compare fees. You have to be able to compare offerings. We at RAND will go so far as to give you a comparison in the interest rates, so that you can see what you're going to pay with the credit union versus another institution. And that's just how the officers are being trained. So you could come in, have a chat, bring your latte, as we say, and you sit, and we will have a conversation with you about, you know, what's best for you. And to put the ice cream on the cake is that we can also tailor something that's just suited for you,
Right,
that you're not going to get in another institution. They're going to have to, and I can tell you from experience, they're going to have to do a lot of writings, a lot of submissions to get something that's tailored for you. And it is still going to be a resemblance of what their policy is, right? At the credit union, you can sit with a credit union officer, and they can literally come up with some very ingenious ways of getting you to your goal.
I'm sure everybody's going to echo that sentiment of knowing your customer, being that tool that helps you to do that. And I want to pin some of those products, because that testimonial gave us a lot of insight on her loyalty and her commitment to RAND and why that is so. From staff, from security, she said, to management is part of the reason that she feels that way. But what we had was an interesting comparison put forth by Christopher, talking about mandatory membership for certain institutions. And I imagine a Trinidadian similar institution that could probably benefit from mandatory membership might be the TNT Fire Service Credit Union. Kyle is going to give us some more insights on that, answer that question, if you will. But Kyle is also, as the director of the TNT Fire Service Credit Union, going to give us the importance, of course, of that financial literacy and some of the tools that Mr. Seeley and others may have mentioned, as well as resources needed to empower their members. So Kyle, I want you to particularly start with the things that we all talk about the mortgages and the loans, but if you can also talk a little bit about wealth management, because it's also another thing that financial institutions provide, credit unions or otherwise, that I think the population is missing out on. So Kyle, give us some insight.
Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. So as you guys know, I'm a director on the Trinidad and Tobago Fire Service Credit Union. And our credit union is still one of the closed-bond credit unions. I don't know whether to say that fortunately or unfortunately. To me, I would say fortunately, and we still enjoy that. And it means, therefore, that we have a specific set that we have to cater for. One of the disadvantages of that is that many persons could, steal our members, but we can't steal their members. In that, for example, to be a member of a fire service credit union, you need to either be a firefighter, obviously, or you either have to be a relative of a firefighter, and that's not always the case. So there are some benefits in the closed bond in the sense that we can control, for example, our delinquency rates, and it's more close, and we're supposed to be more together and things like that. So I'm glad that you asked me the question of financial literacy. So I'll give one of the things when I speak to my younger members or any member that approach me, because being a director, or even I would consider myself to be a leader, persons approach me all the time with regards to financial questions, with regards to credit union, and just in general, being a firefighter and a senior firefighter, you speak to the younger ones all the time, and you always have to be guiding them in the right direction as to how they spend and what they do with their money. And one of the things I teach them is a rule that I use that worked for me. And it's called the 30-30-10 rule. And what that 30 is that any money that comes into my hand, I save 30, I invest 30, 30 is for spending, and then 10% is for your tithes and your offering. And the best way to do that is in the credit union, meaning that, let's say you, like one of the things I used to teach maths, and somebody may pay me a $300 class fee, kind of out at the time because they may not pay a time, however. If I were to try to buy shares with that in the open market, I won't be able to buy nothing unless probably I go to UTC. But like in the credit union, I could literally split up that $300 into the 30-30-20 rule, and therefore I'm consistently building what's called my passive wealth, which I will invest that 30% or let's say $30 out of, let's say $100 on my shares. So my wealth, my passive wealth is continuously growing. My savings, which I'll be dipping into all the time, and we all know that struggle, like when we put aside money to saving, things are jumping up and we're always going to jump up. So your saving account in the credit union allows you to have access to that where you could deal with emergencies and stuff. But you want to always be building that passive income that we know. One of the things that credit union does that the bank don't do is to pay dividends to our members. So all the money we make come back to us, the members. And that's one of the things that, the conversation that I have with members in terms of encouraging them and having them to, see the benefits and grow from the credit union. In addition to that, the credit union constantly do, every now and again, we do stuff for our members. We might do some retirement planning. Firefighters after 55, we may retire. And so there are always special products and still geared towards supporting the member, because it means, therefore, you have to keep a very close, you have to be close to your members, understanding the unique problem that they have and deal with them. And I like one of the example in which the member from Guyana, I can't remember his name, he spoke about the change in the whole, the entire country benefit from lower interest rate as a result of the mortgage. And we too have a mortgage program, and which is recent for us. I don't think it made 5 years yet. I think it's probably 3+ years or so we introduced the mortgage to our thing. It was a struggle to start doing, but we start doing it because what we were finding is that we were losing a lot of our members after we build them up, they're ready, they will have their savings. They're ready at this time, okay, they really need a house because they need somewhere to live. So we were constantly losing a lot of business as a result of members not ready to purchase the house, and because we didn't have that mortgage product, they have to go somewhere else. So we started the mortgage. It's actually quite unique to us, a 5%, and we even take it to members go as far as 70, because members being fire service credit unions, sometimes they benefit from their, their pensions and gratuity afterwards. So we kind of incorporate that to make a unique product that serve our members, and we're getting a lot of traction with it. So there are a lot of things that I mean, I could go on and on with many things that we have as benefit for our members, and I'm really happy to be involved in the credit union, and even to be a director of the Trinidad and Tobago Fire Service Credit Union.
So just these conversations will empower our members, because we're equipping them with the information to make those sound financial decisions. So that's really what this entire forum is all about. And we will continue to do that, specifically answering some of your questions in our Q&A. I'll remind the persons in attendance that you can continuously post those questions to us. We literally have a Q&A part of things. And yes, there is the chat. But the Q&A also allows us to directly manually respond to you, so that panelists can give you specific responses to your questions. I really want to encourage that, because there is a lot of information being disseminated and a little bit more to go through. Because Kyle said, he could go on and on, but all of these institutions and more, you can check on the digital space. That is one of the beautiful things of all of our panelists here. The institutions that they represent are just a click away, and we encourage you guys to check them out on their social media, their web pages, and of course, go on in to build that relationship, because it continues to be echoed throughout the panel. Knowing the customer is a key component to be able to serve them better. And our next speaker will do exactly that, in terms of giving us, or putting focus on trends and opportunities that will give growth to the credit union movement. That includes how credit unions are adapting to global economic changes. And that will be coming in the shape of Mr. Holland Bronte-Tingque, the CEO of 𝐿𝐶 Credit Union. And with the reputation and the existence of 𝐿𝐶, there is a lot that we will cover. So we will try to make this a little bit more poignant, with specific questions being directed to him. And so, Mr. Bronte-Tingque, I know when we talk trends and when we talk about marketing, there is a lot to cover. We're going to, first off, determine how credit unions worldwide are using those trends to approach things like their aging population and the inability to attract that younger population. This is definitely going to impact future growth and continuity. So tell us a little bit of the perspective that 𝐿𝐶 has taken on how they're approaching these two significant demographics.
Great. First of all, thank you for inviting me to the panel. It's a pleasure to be here. We at 𝐿𝐶 Credit Union, as with other credit unions, recognize that we do have an aging population, aging member population, and we took steps really to see how we can resolve that. So recently we opened a youth arm, which is basically a section of your credit union that youth members could come together to not only solve problems, but also to really be trained to become future leaders of the organization. And even more recently, we would have had a youth entrepreneurship conference that really brought youth together, not only members, but non-members as well, so they can see their peers actually in their own element being successful, and give them the tools and tips and tricks in order to become successful themselves. And we have to realize that youth is really the lifeblood of our nation. And just like our nation needs a transfusion every so often, credit unions also need that transfusion to bring youth into the realm of the credit union industry. And that's for continuity, and also for to make sure that business goes along as usual. But the problem that credit unions face right now is that, let's say in my generation, if my mother or father tells me to join a credit union, I probably will. This generation wants value. They have information, they have access to technology, they have choice, they have options. So they are looking for value. And that's where credit unions really need to give those members or prospective members, potential members, some type of engagement. So as our colleague would have said earlier, we need to meet the youth where they are. So they live on their phone, they live on social media, they operate with technology. So your credit unions really needs to bring those to the front and make sure that you first in technology. You are doing the social media ads, you are there on TikTok, you are there on Instagram, definitely not Facebook anymore. But those are the things that people really need, right? A person that is 20 rarely uses papers or newspapers anymore. They get their news from Twitter, those kind of things, right? We also need to develop products and services that will suit the youth. Things like small business loans, student loans, youth savings accounts, and that is what really we do at 𝐶𝐞 Credit Union as well. We have accounts tailored to suit that generation. And definitely keep on encouraging current members to refer their family members and their younger members. And you can't just open the account, you have to engage them throughout the process so that they remain members and into adulthood as well.
I definitely appreciate you describing that transfusion, if you will, injection of the new blood into things. That makes complete sense, as does the good old referrals, because I know that credit unions largely would thrive on that in the initial days. But we are in that new advancement age, and we're talking AI. And while we could say on the surface, yes, everybody has to embrace it because we're moving towards it, how ready, how comfortable, and how much would you say that that is in fact the case, that it is something that you are embracing and what you're bracing for with the pitfalls that come with it as well?
Well, I can say specifically at 𝐶𝐞 Credit Union, we do embrace technology. I would say the country as a whole is behind the trend, the global trend in terms of technology. You would say Europe is a lot more advanced, other countries are a lot more advanced, in China as well. But if you have to think as technology as like a train, right? And the larger credit unions can afford that first class ticket, and we can do all the bells and whistles and have all those internet banking and those kind of things that will attract those members, right? There are some credit unions that may not have the capital to introduce all the bells and whistles, but they may only be able to afford an economy ticket on that train, right? But regardless what kind of ticket you can afford, you're moving on the train. The issue is where there may still be credit unions that are still on the platform deciding if to get on the train. And if they decide too long, they will be left behind. And that's where we need to come together as an industry and see if we can solve issues together and really collate or combine our capital in order to make investments that will benefit the entire credit union movement. So recently, we would have the Credit Union League, along with RAN Credit Union and 𝐶𝐞 Credit Union. We would have participated in a Caribbean sprint for financial inclusion, and that's with TTIFC and also UNCDF. And that is really to bring a greater emphasis on finance and fintech for the credit unions of Trinidad and Tobago. And we'll explore things like digital wallets, and we'll also explore things like increasing our capabilities in our core banking systems as well. So that is something that is going on right now, and that will benefit the entire credit union movement. I'm not hearing you.
I like that you're speaking collectively, because in terms of opportunities, we may have heard persons acknowledge shortcomings across the panel, but are there anything that you'd like to underscore that we may have missed? Any opportunities for growth within the well-populated industry that is the credit union sector?
Yes, as I said, a lot of people and a few of my colleagues on the panel mentioned this before: cooperation among cooperatives and more specifically credit unions. I think we do not live that value as much as we should. And there's an opportunity not only from the income side, but from the expense side as well, right? I think if we really bring ourselves together and into a think tank, we can explore the issue of shared services, right? I know the league does shared services right now, but even if you think about this on a larger level, we can explore actually forming companies that are owned by the credit unions that can actually do all those background services in the background, like advertising, stationery and groceries, IT services, HR services, and give the credit unions value at a cheaper price that we can now really focus on our core capabilities, which is actually providing services to our members. and we don't have to study actually spending all our profit on companies that may not be seeking our interests. Yeah, so that is something that we can do, and that will give us the opportunity to scale as well, because a small credit union with that kind of support will be able to scale their business a lot faster.
A beautiful contribution therein. I see Hester emphatically nodding with that one. And we will circle back almost to everyone in a more open way, but I do want to ask a little bit about regulatory changes. Specifically, we've heard this morning a lot of the history, a lot of what it was built on. We have that sense of community at the core, but regulation is something that we are seeing across the board, but it was just read and so many things will be impacted. What are your thoughts about the upcoming regulatory changes, and in terms of growth or challenges, how do you see it?
I tend to see everything as an opportunity. Regulation is something that is necessary in most industries. I think regulation offers a structure. It also has a sense of legitimacy as well. And again, once you let the regulation is not restrictive, right? I think it will actually benefit the credit union, because things like regulation, and sometimes we think of regulation only at the government level where there's some kind of oversight in credit unions, but we also have to think about self-regulation as well. Each credit union has to put in some policies and procedures in place at the governance level, the compliance level, the risk level, in order to make sure that we do things the right way and that members have that trust in us. And once persons trust the organization a lot more, that means a lot more assets will be flowing into the organization. And they refer a lot more as well, because I trust this institution, you can trust this institution as well. So I think regulations are a great thing. We just have to know how to use it and how to survive with the change in regulations.
I actually want to pose that question a little bit to the rest of the panel, because when we talk about it, it impacts everyone. If Diane could take the helm, leading the charge and responding to that, when we talk about the contributions of other credit unions, other cooperatives, contributing to the conversation of the regulations, how is that done? How much input do we have from other credit union members, other credit union representatives? How collaborative is that endeavor? How are those changes being rolled out? Can we get any sort of insight as to how that would be done from the perspective of the TT, CSI, and others? Diane, can we begin with you? And still muted though. And while she unmutes, if anyone else would like to take a dab at it, giving some insight as to how they or their institutions have contributed to that conversation. Was it a collective conversation altogether then? Mr. Bronte, thank you. Could you confirm?
Yes. So while we wait on Diane to unmute, well, I will say the contribution is really a league contribution. So once the league is looking at the document or the proposed legislation, they actually invite all the credit unions into a meeting and they go through it in detail. All right, so we are able to actually contribute and give our ideas. And once there's a change, they come back to us again and we also contribute again. So it's a very collaborative process that has gone on for probably, I think, about a year or two now. So we are able to contribute at every level. So the persons who actually attend the meetings go back to their board, talk to their board. If they have any feedback, they take it back to the league as well. And then the league goes to the committee as well in order to give that feedback. So it's a very good process. And in doing so, we get feedback from the entire industry.
Diane, in your capacity and membership of the league, give us a little insight as to how that discussion or conversation has been going thus far, where changes in regulations are concerned.
Okay, well, as our Clico Credit Union CEO is saying, the process that he has outlined is in fact correct. That's what we do here. Basically, it started off pretty good and we have reached a point where we have just a couple areas outstanding for resolution between the Cooperative Credit Union League and the committee. And we have submitted our final proposals to the Minister of Youth Development and National Service, and awaiting a meeting for discussion on the outstanding points. One of the things we also discussed is the deposit insurance for credit unions and making it mandatory, and that we supported because it is necessary. We have a large and growing sector, and we believe that the members' funds should be protected. Outside of that, we embrace legislation because we believe that it is not as we started in 1947 and so. We believe that there's a need for strengthening of or continuous strengthening of the governance system. So the movement has supported the strengthening of the governance standards and term limits and other requirements for the credit union movement here in Trinidad and Tobago. So as of now, I would say that we are progressing pretty good. And following the meeting with our line minister, we will know better where we go from here.
Any estimated timelines as to when we, the public or the members, can expect to see the results or have those outcomes shared with us?
I can't say for sure how soon the outcome will be shared with the public, because I know that we have been talking legislation since I think it's 2006.
Yeah.
That's quite a long time. The problem is that the first bill was not friendly to the credit union movement, so the league opposed that, the league and the movement, and that was withdrawn. And subsequent to that, this new committee was formed, and we are now working on this one and hopefully expecting to wrap up. Well, on the ministry side, because we have done our part and submitted our report. But we are waiting on a meeting with our line ministry before we could decide on our next steps.
Right.
So in terms of a time frame, I really don't want to guess. Based on past experience, it can be now or it can be way down the road.
Fingers crossed for
fingers crossed. That's it. Yeah, that's the best way to put that. Yeah.
Now, Kester, you were emphatically nodding when we touched on particularly collaborative efforts, and I wondered if you had a particular contributing perspective therein. I think one of the things that Eastern is known for is their collaboration with the communities within which they operate. So would you like to expand on that a bit, Kester? How collaboration specifically will help with the future of corporations, credit unions, and the others succeeding altogether?
Yeah. Coming out of the principles, number 6 in particular, cooperation amongst cooperatives. That is key for the success of the movement. And I would have heard my colleague from Fire Services Credit Union speak about the challenges they had with their membership in terms of when they reach a particular status or point in their life cycle that they would be looking for mortgages. And that in itself is one of the areas that this principle really focuses on, in that it now, Fire Services Credit Union had to now go through the process of being able to offer mortgages, whereas an option of partnering with another credit union that is strong enough to do mortgages or have been doing it over time, that could have assisted them, whereby they partner and share products. So the shared services could also work in that dynamic. So for example, so things like ATM cards, all these things, you have like Eastern still being the only credit union with its own ATM card. That is a service that could be shared with other credit unions, where instead of them having to start the process by themselves and go through the whole gamut and get the spend, basically,
right,
the financial expenditure they have to put out to get something like that. And both entities will benefit and in turn strengthen the entire credit union movement within Trinidad and Tobago. So that's why I was so supportive of the points made by the 𝐬𝐲 CEO about cooperation amongst cooperatives. And it's not only limited to financial cooperatives, because, for example, there's the cooperative in Moruga that supports farmers and so forth with rice, the dry rice that is not grown in wet lands. It's grown in the dry terrain. And things like they were looking for financing. So it's like that could still work there because it's a cooperative. A credit union is just a financial cooperative. So it works in various areas of the system, the credit union system. But the key is that we have to work together to really support the unit. Everyone will benefit from us working together, and we are stronger as a unit than separate and trying to take or compete with other credit unions. So that was my point in the whole thing.
I appreciate particularly the underscoring of that card expense that you, Easton, would have incurred, delving into that realm solely when it comes to credit unions. I wonder then if the learnings from that endeavor have been shared perhaps as a best practice to other credit unions, and if there's been feedback to help develop that, because it still chimes in with that collaborative effort that you talk about. There are facilities and forums where you do share information, much like this one. So has there been any opportunity to share that across the board, just as a consumer? Is that something I can look forward to?
Yes. So we would have learned from it, and we would have been having conversations with particular credit unions about sharing the service, because we are now venturing into releasing our MasterCard very soon. So that in itself was another learning experience, but this affords us the opportunity now to better support and lend this service to other credit unions for their membership and keep this within the credit union system. So yes, we would have learned from it. We would have already started engaging other credit unions about sharing the service, but we have some work to do still with the MasterCard before we could really get it going, because we have to make sure we have it properly done on our end first before we could offer it. But it is something that we already started.
Quality over quantity, always. Speaking of quantity, we have quite a few attendees coming in and out, and I want to just remind them that you are encouraged to pose your questions directly through our Q&A option. You're on Zoom, there literally is a Q&A button. While the chat is available to you to leave your comments, you will notice that some of these questions are being answered in our deliveries, as well as manually being answered. So I'll just share for the benefit of other persons who may not have read the questions themselves. Ryan Charles, who I suspect is in marketing, has asked, in an industry that is so saturated with credit unions and the products they offer, what is key for an organization to stand out from the rest? And I think most will agree with Royce's response, saying an exception customer service. How do members feel in your presence, and how does it continue to resonate when they leave? We've kind of already seen and heard that demonstrated in one of the testimonials. I know we have a couple more. I'm hoping that we can get them to be shared before we end this live session. But I encourage users to send those questions still, because we have contributions from 2 more institutions, one of which, if you can direct your attention to the screen, we'll share now. I will also go through some of the other questions that have been privately answered. But for now, let's hear a little bit more of the testimonials from some of our persons who are members who may or may not be on the live with us now. Let's take a listen.
Hi, my name is Caroline Daniels, a proud member of the Ghana Public Service Credit Union. I've been with this credit union for as long as 22 years, and I've enjoyed their service growth. Most recently, the most exciting part of my journey with this credit union was most recently when my daughter, who is a final year student at the Woodland Law School, at that time I had no idea where I would find her second year fees, and I had an outstanding payment for her first year. And so coming close to the time, I reached out to one of the exec members, Ms. Harris, because we would have engaged, and she was very, very welcoming when we spoke for the first time. And so I reached out to her and I said, Ms. Harris, this is my situation. And she said, come, I think the credit union can help you. And so I came and I was able to get up the documents. And in short order, I received that loan amount of $3.5 million, and I don't have any regrets. I will encourage any public servant out there to join the credit union. It's rewarding, and they fight for you. What I can say, they fight for you because I got that loan the same day my daughter was traveling. I was able to get that money to my bank account, which is not usual because the bank takes a little while to put the money in, but the credit union, everybody was on board to ensure that my daughter acquired her dreams. I want to extend thank you on behalf of me, my daughter, and continue to serve public servants selflessly.
Absolutely demonstrating that distinction Ms. Camino underscored. She was able to name the person that actively helped her in her endeavor, and it is clearly regionally one of the better parts of credit union membership, I would imagine, as the best way to describe it. Now, we have covered quite a bit today, and I know for our attendees, there will still be questions, there may still be specific things that you'd like to have addressed, and we encourage you to continue to engage with us, making sure that these institutions and others are very much accessible digitally, and with the likes of Rose, we'll continue to make them accessible to you in endeavors like this. Fingers crossed on this becoming something that is more regular, so that that information can be shared, that access can be created, and that these sorts of linkages are maintained. I'm saying this because at this point, we are officially at the end of any sort of formal or segmented presentations, and we do continue to encourage you to ask your questions directly. I will also take the opportunity to have each of our panel members perhaps give us some insight as to what we can look forward to from them, as this is in fact celebrating International Credit Union Month. So while we await for some more questions to roll in or be typed out, I'd like to get back to Kester to give us some updates on what we could possibly look forward to from Eastern Credit Union this Credit Union Month. And then if we can go through from everybody else, events, activities, outreach programs that we can put on our calendars. Kester, what do we have?
Okay, so we have health testing. So we have eye testing, blood sugar, those types of things happening at our various locations. We'll also have tokens being given out to members who attend the various branches on the day with a snack plate for just showing our appreciation for their business and their loyalty to Eastern Credit Union over the years. Coming out of that, we have some other events coming up as well. I mean, some will fall after the Credit Union Month, but we have the Diabetes Walk in Tobago as well, and the Children's Christmas parties for our members, both in Trinidad and Tobago, coming up till the end of the year. So those are the main items we have. We have some educational programs as well that will be in train. And those things, just stay tuned to our social media pages and that you will get all the other information there.
Keeping it digital. And thanks for reminding me that I need to check on my card renewal. I'll be coming in soon and hopefully getting one of those T-plates. Christopher, I wanted to make the distinction after seeing the testimonial that the 2.5 million was Guyanese dollars because it was a little dry. But tell us what else customers and members can look forward to in this Credit Union Month.
Indeed, thank you so much. It was actually $3.5 million, which is the
I have to reduce it from my mind.
Yeah, it is equivalent of the UV yearly fees. Thereabout. So yes, I'm so happy for that member and her daughter at law school. So for the Credit Union Month, we've been planning. We've conducted our bursary awards ceremony, which is the largest in the country, by the way. We awarded almost 100 recipients. Children of Credit Union members who have done well in their exams recently. On Credit Union Day itself, we have plans to offer our members tokens of appreciation, refreshments, and the likes. Most importantly, we have our upcoming Christmas promotion where members are encouraged to continue with the Credit Union's offering, and we will offer cash prizes and hampers and so forth. I just want to go back really quickly because I know this week we went it down, but relative to legislation, I also want to make the distinction that I see an active league in Trinidad, and that is what will be most welcome in Guyana. It's still a work in progress. We get in there, but we are a long way off from where we should be. I also want to state that relative to regulations, we are a bit behind the rest of the Caribbean, or perhaps the world at large. You know, we have a legislation that is 72 years old that had any significant amendment perhaps about 50 years ago. So except for AML regulations, nothing of substance has been done to the regulation, and it's really a bed bug for us. For example, one instance is relative to the requirement for quorum at AGMs. It's really in the legislation, 1/4 of the membership. Now, imagine a credit union with thousands of members have to have a quorate number of thousands of persons to constitute an AGM. So those are some of the legislative challenges that we face, and hopefully, you know, with these forums, we could explore what our counterparts have done to address them, and take a similar vein locally here in Guyana also.
I know other members may take the opportunity, but let me say as a Trinidadian, thank you for underscoring that positive and that progress that we have therein, things to celebrate.
Yeah,
I will then go to Mr. Seeley, giving us some insights into what RAND is offering this credit union a month, because I know the celebrations are underway and we're taking you all away from that right now, but tell us what we can look forward to.
Well, it was perfect timing. I just had to take off my camera because they dropped off my jerseys. But yes, for Credit Union Month, basically we are opening our newest branch in the Southland. That is what's big on our agenda for the next few weeks. That's supposed to happen around the end of the month, the beginning of November. We're venturing into the Southland for the first time officially with a branch. Besides that happening, we have our coastal cleanup coming up. That's also another big activity that we have happening. And then of course, our annual children's Christmas party. That is a big thing at RAND and for the members, you know, and managing that is a huge, monumental task, but it's big on the agenda. And then of course, we just have our regular outreach. So we're going to be representing in our polos, and as we deal with opening South, basically.
Best of luck in that endeavor. And I, of course, will hear more after the opening. The coastal cleanup is a beautiful endeavor, and I'll try to make time to do that. But Kyle, tell us a little bit as to what the members of the Fire Service Credit Union will enjoy as we look to observing Credit Union Month.
Okay, so thank you very much. So there are several activities taking place as we celebrate Credit Union Month. We at Fire Service Credit Union, we truly do look forward to Credit Union Month as something that we embrace. So first of all, members could look forward to, well, this is a regular for us. We normally have for Credit Union Week, where members visiting the different branch, we may have different promotions. One of the promotions is something that we call a spin to win, where if you deposit a certain amount of money and share, we have this nice little wheel and you spin and you could win $200 shares or $500 shares. If you deposit a certain amount, then you get 2 spin as opposed to 1 spin extra. So that spin to win thing is something that our members will be looking forward to at our 4 branches, which are Arima, South, Port of Spain, and of course Tobago. Also, given that our credit union have been in existence for almost 58 years now, and we wanted our members to take an appreciation of the fact that the credit union have grown from underneath, literally underneath a stepping headquarters where they had the first branch to presently now. We have a promotion, not really a promotion, but an education drive now where we highlighting the past presidents of our credit union from back that time to now. So members are seeing these things on the social media application. Okay, did you know? And there's also one that called Did You Know, where it's an educational drive also, where we're educating persons about certain corporate things about the credit union. Like, for example, we found out that many members don't know sometimes simple things like even the composition of the board, the fact that what the supervisory committee do, the credit committee. So we're taking an opportunity to also educate our members during this month also. Also, we have what's called an ambassador drive. You know, our credit union is small, and we have to keep the members that we have. So we are encouraging, we have an ambassador drive. If a member bring 5 members or more, there's a voucher that he gets to win as opposed to that. And well, we have a Christmas tree party also in the planning, but that's for November. We don't really consider that credit union month, but these are some of the activities that we have, and we are in full bloom as executing them. So thank you.
Little but you tell a lot going on. I congratulate you in that endeavor. And to close things off in terms of that calendar of events, Mr. Bronte, thank you. If you can give us some insight as to what we can look forward to from the 𝐶𝐞 family this credit union month, we would gladly listen up.
Sure. We actually celebrate credit union year, so we have these events all through the year. We try to do something every month, but definitely for credit union month, we have our normally in-house eats and drinks on the credit union day itself, and they also have the opportunity to win prizes on the spot. We also have a spin the wheel. I think that is very popular in credit unions as well. So members have the opportunity at our branches to come in and win something as well. We just completed giving out some bursaries to students that were successful in their studies. So they got tablets as well. We are within the 100 days of Christmas loan promotion. So I think we're down to 80 days or so, a little less, that members can come and definitely get specials on loans to meet their Christmas needs and other needs as well. We going on for the rest of the year. We also have educational programs that are normally free to our members, online programs mostly. We have, I'm not sure if everyone knows this, but we do have 2 villas in Tobago, and we'll be offering discounts on those villa stays throughout the rest of the year as well. And definitely our key thing for credit union month and beyond is outreach to our key stakeholders. So we'll be going out to our key stakeholders and making presentations for financial planning and anything that they need as well, because they may not be able to come to us all the time.
Right.
So that's just some of the activities for now.
Well, that is a year-long calendar of activities, and I particularly like that the villas are a part of that. But I made sure that I had all the gentlemen go before the ladies, as we see them, the best for last. Granted that we know there is quite the calendar and the succession planning coming in for 𝐶𝐞. Lois, can you give us some of the things we can look forward to from 𝐶𝐞 this credit union month as well?
Yeah, sure. Happy to share that with you all. For us, every day is our Member Appreciation Day. But to formalize it into the month, Thursday we start off with, as all the other credit unions, I think this is a formality for all of us, that we have members come in and they take part in some refreshments and some tokens and freebies and giveaways. We have a craft market that is coming up. And this is with the intent to showcase our members who are budding entrepreneurs, sole traders, now getting a startup, to come and showcase their talent. So we're going to be having that at our head office branch in California. And that is coming up. It's going to be shared on our social media and Facebook. It's already there, but it's coming up in the first week of November. So you have the craft market there with anybody who has any of our membership who has that skill in whatever it is that they are pushing forward as marketable products. We have our mini health fair coming up where we're doing vision, diabetes, and pressure testing on Thursday as well for the members when they come in to collect the tokens and the freebies. We also have launching that would spill over into the next 2 months of the year, clinic days. And clinic days meaning not just wellness, but also financial counseling, financial health, of your own individual assessment of financial upkeep, and any other areas where you might need a little further training on or education on. So we would also have the legal aspect of it together with the financials. We have the Golden Achievers Back to the Future Tour, and this is where we like to take our senators throughout Trinidad and Tobago. We have been to Tobago on our last meeting. And so for those 50 and over, we generally like to end the year on an occasion like that for them. We also have the bursaries coming up for those who have excelled in the SCA, CSEC, and CAPE, and that will be coming up shortly. We have, of course, the recognition for prizes for those who have done exceptionally well. And then we have the corporate outreach program that is happening at all 4 branches where we are. And so we like to make a presence there in the community. And so that also is coming up together, of course, with our seasonal promotions, which also targets membership and product and services promotions. And of course, it all ends with a culmination on a newsletter, and that is going to be the Christmas edition. That would end it for now till December.
But I love that everybody's wrapping up with Christmas. I'm so excited speaking with my Mike Reed. I am going to ask that Dan give us a little bit of insight as to what we can look forward to, considering that it may be a bit different for the league, but nonetheless, what can we look forward to Credit Union Month from the Cooperative Credit Union League of Trinidad and Tobago, Dan?
Okay, nice. Well, we started on Sunday with our grand opening at Irwin Park in Superior. There we had just under 1,900 persons in attendance, where we celebrated in grand family style, the meeting and greeting credit unions from across Trinidad and Tobago and all our key stakeholders and our ministry representatives. So that was indeed successful. And coming up on Thursday, which is International Credit Union Day, we will have our national award ceremony, where some of these persons I'm seeing here on my screen will be attending. It happens to be one of the larger ones this year. It will be carried live on I-95.5 FM from 7 p.m. So we will recognize the credit unions for excellence in performance. And then we go to Tobago for the closing ceremony on October 31st, where we will have an award ceremony there as well, workshops, and we will recognize pioneers in Tobago. And as we seek to wrap up the year, we will have our Christmas affair hosted at Rand Credit Union, where again, we will invite our major stakeholders and our credit union members to a grand close off, courtesy our league, where we socialize, mix, mingle, and have a time of dancing to close off 2024.
I was just saying you can count me in, but then I realized I now have to pick a credit union. And that is probably one of the questions we had earlier, but let me just ask the audience if anybody has any final questions before we say thank you to our incredible panel and wind up today's session. I know there is a question from Claudine Alert, where initially I saw Christopher begin to type, but perhaps decide not to. So I will read out, given the role of the credit union in the financial arena, how can they build lifetime loyalty from a child to retirement and keep creating wealth for them? To round off the conversation, I take the opportunity to say that from our panel, we've been able to determine exactly that. We know the distinction will be created through the customer service that we offer, and that the tailoring of products to each person's individual needs, knowing your customer, is a big part of how credit unions successfully serve their members from childhood to retirement, and to help them with wealth management in terms of education and developing new products that age with the population. So I think, Claudine, altogether, while you may not find a specific institution giving you particular things, I do think you've come away with a wealth of knowledge, like our other 30 to 40 odd participants, some of whom have come in at different points. We thank you very much for your time. And to David Tate, yes, we do appreciate that you appreciate this session, because it was in fact wonderful. Now, to actually thank you for your time, your contributions and the likes, we'll officially have a vote of thanks from the person whose brainchild or conceptualized this event, Mr. Omar Romero, the CEO of Rose Virtual and Rouge ITSL, giving us an official vote of thanks as we get ready to wrap things up. Over to you, Omar.
Okay. Hi everyone, good morning. My name is Omar Romero. I'm the CEO here at Rose IT Services Limited. And on behalf of our team, I'd just like to extend my sincerest thanks to everyone who came together to make this webinar event possible. I'd like to say a special thank you to Diane Joseph, Chief Operating Officer of the Cooperative Credit Union League and the President of the TNT Coalition of Service Industries. I would like to also thank all the representatives of the credit union that joined us here today. Louis Camino, President of 𝐎𝐲 Credit Union, Christopher Thompson, CEO of Guyana Public Service Credit Union, who came and gave us a regional presence on the webinar. Mr. Holland Brunt Tinque, CEO of 𝐿𝐶 Credit Union, 𝐭𝐨𝐶 𝐖𝐨𝐫𝐥𝐝 Group Executive Manager, Marketing Research and Business Development at Eastern Credit Union, Kenrick Seeley, Credit Administration Manager from RAN Credit Union, Kyle Andrews, Director of Trinidad and Tobago Fire Service Credit Union, and of course, to our wonderful host, 𝐴𝐴𝐶 Will, who did such an amazing job here today in tying all this together. So for myself, I mean, so for the first time I attended a credit union AGM was sometime around 2011 or 2012. And I will never forget that day where I was sitting in the audience and I was just looking around and just being amazed because I had never actually been to like a corporate shareholders meeting or something of that formal nature where there was that level of interaction between the leadership of the organization and the members or the customers that they serve. And I sat there and I was just generally amazed at the diversity, at the different people from all different walks of life, and the fact that everyone who was present there had the same voice. And I was also amazed that the leadership went to great lengths to explain in detail everything that was presented in front of them. And they really took their time to answer everyone's questions and make everything clear. And from back in those days, we have forged a long-standing relationship with credit unions. And we've helped them from everything from digital transformation to technology. And many of credit unions know us from hosting hybrid and virtual AGMs and meeting elections and all that stuff. But I think what I want to say is that throughout the years, we count ourselves lucky to be working alongside the credit union movement because we have the opportunity to see firsthand the tremendous work that they do in communities, to see like the individual people they help, to see the initiatives, to see how by and large they all focus on improving the lives of members and making a difference in the different spaces that they are presented. So we see all the positive things, and I think generally the intent of this webinar was really just to provide a platform to share a bit more awareness for what credit unions do. Because in 2024, a lot of times when I speak to the everyday person, I ask, well, have you ever attended a credit union AGM, or do you understand what credit unions do? Quite commonly, the answer is no. And if in any way this event helped to get persons more interested in that credit union movement and being able to access all these great things that they have to offer, we would count this event a success. So thank you. Thank you. I also want to say a special thanks to the team here who worked so hard behind the scenes to make this event possible. And I want, on behalf of us, to wish each and every one of you here with us today, for the persons who attended online, the guests who have been here, and the credit union movement on a whole, a very happy International Credit Union Month. I know International Credit Union Day is on Thursday, the 17th, this coming Thursday. So also a happy International Credit Union Day. And thank you again.
Thank you, Omar. We're seeing the beautiful comments of, well, accolades coming in on the chat. We appreciate that. And the questions are also being filled with accolades. So I'd say we can count it as a success. What we will do, though, is encourage our panelists to leave social media handles or any contacts that they wish to share in the chat as well, so that some of our participants can directly connect with you guys. And we will officially wrap up with a little bit more gratitude, the final testimonial coming out from our friends at Eastern Credit Union as we wrap things up. And again, wish everybody a happy Credit Union Day in advance. Thank you again for your time, for your attention. and continue to be great. Have a fantastic day, everyone.
Eastern, the staff was highly professional. They gave quality service, and every time I needed them for any assistance, there was always an email or phone call away. And I would definitely recommend Eastern for any of your financial transactions or mortgages, loans, etc. Great experience.
Hi, good morning. My name is Ryan Christian. I'm an upper sixth student of Arima Central, and I am proud to be a member of Eastern Credit Union. They gave me a grant for completing CSEC, which helped with my textbooks for the term. That speaks to me on so many volumes, and I am so proud to be a member of an organization that actually gives back.
My name is Carissa 𝐬𝐧𝐞. I am a small business owner and a member of Eastern Credit Union for the past 25 years. Recently, I would have gone to do a transaction and the process happened in quick time. And the service was very professional. Last year, Eastern Credit Union had a Gift of Lights promotion in which I was automatically entered after taking a loan to enhance parts of my business. In June of 2024, I think it was, I got a call. I want $10,000 repaid to my loan. I was so excited, happy, and thankful to God and Eastern Credit Union for allowing me this opportunity. I would recommend you become a member of Eastern Credit Union. Start with us, stay with us. We are leading the way. Thank you to Eastern Credit Union for making one of my dreams come true.